June 8th, 2020 council meeting to order at 6 p.m. For everybody coming, anybody online, roll call.
John Myers.
Here.
Josh Turner.
Here.
Pete Ketchum.
Here.
Jim Eisen.
Here.
Josh McCarty.
Here.
Jonathan Myers.
Here.
And Rob Henderson.
Pete, would you do the invocation?
Yes. Yep. If we could all please take a moment to pray. Father in heaven, we are grateful this evening to come together as a council, and we pray for godly influence as we conduct county business. We pray for a speedy end to the pandemic and the current civil unrest. We pray that everyone here has a safe trip home, and we pray for these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance. Say it.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of June 8th, 2020 agenda. Changes. Motion by Mr. Eisen. Second by Mr. McCarty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, passes. Other comments? Sheriff, you have anything? Okay. Routine matters, consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they request to pull that off? Questions?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
A motion by Mr. McCarty,
Second.
second by Jonathan T. Myers. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Up next, emergency management.
Okay, go with the fair board.
Do what?
Stephanie Seasting, Emergency Management Director, Zoom meeting with the fair board about the fair. As you know, it's supposed to be on this, so we're tag teaming this. I've come to you, last month you wanted a true amount that I'll need to stockpile. So I did go big and ask for 50,000 this month. I'm not sure I'll need all that, but I'd rather have and more than enough to stockpile PPE. We have been told that it'll probably come back in August, right when school is going to be going back to session. So we want to make sure that we have enough for everybody. I still am furnishing courts, probation with stuff right now since they've reopened.
Will this be reimbursable?
Yes. She and I have talked about that. So
What's the percent on that, on the reimbursement?
for both PA, it's 75%, and the other 25% can go to CARES, or we can do 100% with CARES.
What does that
We
mean?
need to talk about that. Yeah.
I don't know what PA is. Gina Johnson.
Oh, public assistance.
Okay. So, under the CARES Act, the governor has given a distribution to local governments. Johnson County's allotment was around $5 million.
5,087,000 and some odd.
I think it was 8.
Yeah.
And that is at 100% for certain expenditures between end of March, I believe, and the end of the year. It doesn't, there's also certain exclusions, a lot of the payroll expenses, definitely none of the leaves that we paid for, but some of the testing that we've done, PPE is the big one, I think. We're in talks right now about how best to go about getting reimbursed, because there's kind of two avenues you can go. When she was talking about the 75% was like the FEMA
And that is taking, I did a short one, I put it in April. The minimum you can ask for is $3,300. I put $3,336.61 2 months ago when we stopped cut the money. Now, according to Indiana Finance Authority, that we have to do this CARES Act reimbursement through 14 days. They'll give us the money back.
We haven't tried it yet.
We haven't tried it.
Tried it yet. Kind of,
You just
just kind of
send it.
waiting until today, and now we're still waiting a little bit.
So, and if the $5 million that the county got, if they don't spend it by the end of the year, the last day of the year, it goes back to the state. It's not something that's gonna roll over till next year, so
So it's
that's what we've been talking about, is the avenue we wanna take.
you and Betsy last month came for together $15,000.
Well, we've each gotten 10,000 for the last 2 months, so it's 20,000.
Do you anticipate that it's going to be that amount each month?
No, I'm asking for this to finish getting all the PPE stuff that we're gonna need.
for the entire year?
Oh yeah, I'm cleaning out my storage room in my EOC to house all that.
Yes, I wanna make sure I understand something. So I understand the 50,000 right now.
Yes.
at the end of the year. Tell me about the 5 million again,
That's what the county got from the CARES Act.
and it's going where?
Okay, hold on. It's really just, sorry, Scott.
That's okay.
Okay, it's really just what is available. So we have this pot of money that's around $5 million that's allotted for Johnson County based on some calculation that I don't know what is. And that is the, I guess, the max that we can be reimbursed for these certain things that fall in certain categories. I guess the thought is if those categories change, and that's why she was talking about the public assistance through FEMA and just getting the 25% match refunded from the CARES.
So we can get reimbursed up to 5 million, or we have $5 million in the bank that we got from
The first.
we can be reimbursed up to 5 million.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to fill out a one-page reimbursement thing if we go through the CARES Act. And you fill in your information and then what you're asking for is what you were awarded. And you have to do it like the first, you have to number 1, and then like the second one will be 2. You have to keep track of how much you spent and how much is still allotted. And then you send that with all the invoices or receipts you have to the Indiana Finance Authority.
So are you gonna be able to max out those funds and you what?
Yeah.
You want me to come back up? Josh, can you guys talk at the new microphones?
Yes,
Is yours even on?
I don't think so.
The lights are hard to see.
Okay.
Okay, great. I guess, I forgot your question. Oh, we did too, good.
Are we gonna
Yeah.
max it out?
Yeah,
We
we
gotta
got
be able to match it up.
No, I mean, I think that, based on the current allowances for reimbursement, there's no way we could hit that much. It would only be if, and I think the governor alluded to it in one of his press conferences, that it might extend the, possible things we get reimbursed for. So if that happened, we wouldn't know what those are, so maybe there would be a possibility, right? Is that your interpretation?
Yeah, they're still waiting. I know the one thing that the public assistance will pay for is the laptops and stuff that some of the offices bought to telework from home. Public assistance will pay for those. So those will have to go through CARES Act because they will allow those. But you can only do, the PA you can do, but I did it. I still have to turn in my receipts. But we were notified, well, the state knows that Johnson County funds have been approved, but they don't know when the money's coming. And that's always 35% of $3,336. Because I just tried it once just to see how long it would take. So it's kind of like, do we want to wait a long time or, but that's what we need to decide what we want to do.
Does this cover like the shields they're putting up in different departments?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, there are 6 categories, and she and I went through them. 5 and 6 will never hit. I mean, 6 is like an obsolete. We have to really have a definition for that.
The Indiana Finance Authority came up with a form. You fill out a form every time you want reimbursement, and then the reasons that, the categories that you can fall in are on the back of the form. So we can send you that if you wanna have a look. But what she's saying is, I mean, the
Yeah.
bulk of the, here. It's not, okay. All right, so the first category is mostly medical expenses, including testing, which we did pay for. And then the second category, public health expenses,
That's all the PPE.
so that's all the PPE. And then payroll expenses, those are unforeseen payroll expenses. So we're talking about overtime that's directly attributable to COVID-19. I don't know if we really have any, but that's just.
And it has to be that you didn't approve it in our budgets for this year,
Is this only for,
COVID related.
right, but I know that all the municipalities are also keeping track of
They
their,
have their own pots.
so they have their own.
Every city and town in Johnson County got CARES Act money. Yes,
Is that part of that 5 million or is that totally separate?
that's totally separate.
Separate. And then one of the other ones, like she was saying, expenses to improve telework capabilities. So it's a handful of things on there that would be helpful for 100% reimbursement. It's just a matter of if those categories change to allow more items, how to funnel to make sure that we're getting the best.
Yes, I have all the, I've paid for some of those shields out of my original 20,000 USD.
My thought is,
Out of that line item.
we'll have through the end of the year, maybe a collaboration of entities put their heads together and see how we can best utilize those funding. If we're gonna lose them, let's make sure we're not omitting anything that we could be purchasing that might need.
Yeah, that's why I said, that's why I'm trying to get, all the PPE stocked up, so if it ever happens again, we'll have the needed, we won't have to hurry up and try to buy it.
Will that cover vaccines, cost of vaccines too for the county, when one comes out?
I don't think they've contemplated that yet, but that could be one of the things that they add later. I don't know.
Yeah, because it'll probably go under the #1 medical expenses. They do know it's ever changing. Yeah, it's
I'm sorry, I apologize. What was the question?
I have a question about the CARES Act. Can that be utilized for nursing homes? Or are they considered a private entity and they aren't eligible for that?
Look at the reimbursement.
They're all,
I believe, I had a meeting with Dr. Box, the state health commissioner. I sit on her advisory council, and we had a meeting last week and we talked about the CARES Act, and I asked the question that we as the health department were joining in with our county government to be a part of the CARES money that comes to Johnson County. But then she focused on the point that she doesn't want monies to run out, so they are going to, the State Department of Health is going to work at pushing that funding straight down to the local health departments. So we may be able, the health department, I'm not really sure right now where we're at, but we may be able to come out from, not out from underneath the county, but we might be able to secure some CARES funding this way from the state, where then the EMAs in the county go this way to get the rest of the funding back. And I believe that our chunk of it will be to help the long-term care. Yeah, the long-term care. So that's a really big conundrum because they are private entities, but some of them aren't. Some of them are non-for-profits, and so that's why this big push from the state came down, is that because it doesn't look strange. Why are we at the county level providing PPE for private groups, but it doesn't fall that way with regard to a pandemic. And like I said, a lot of those aren't for fund or for profit, so that's why we're responsible for that. So somehow what we are being assured is that if these are COVID-related activities and these are funds that we're putting out there and we're providing the PPE to the designated people following the criteria that they set out for us, then we will receive reimbursement. I hope that kind of answered the question in a long way. I'm sorry.
It did.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Got one more question.
I'm trying to answer it. One of us will.
I know you can. So how are you doing on getting supplies? Are you having any problems or?
I just ordered some last week and I got it within a week. It's the company that we've ordered for the jail, US 21. So my big next push is ordering gloves because that is a hard commodity that people can't get. So.
And I just wanted to add, Steph and I were in the IMT meeting this morning, and the real popular thing to do right now is slap that PPE label on something, and then like take White River Fire got a bunch of gowns, and when they got their gowns, they didn't have any arms on them. How is that considered a gown? And that they were piecing together one gown in the front, one gown in the back to kind of be whatever, and if you sneezed on it, it went through the gown. So literally we're working very hard to find reputable vendors. Sometimes it's a lot harder than you ever thought. Well, I mean, it's, you know,
even the state
it's what happens when these things
says they're
happen.
having a hard time finding gloves right now, because that's what every county requested for their PPE at the start of this. So.
I'll make a motion to approve the request as presented.
A motion by Mr. Eisen, second by Jonathan T. Myers. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Betsy Swearingen, Director of the Health Department, and I apologize for butting in on Stephanie's explanation, but she gave me that look like she had a question, so I apologize.
Kind of melded together.
And Joanne and I apologize, we're meeting that's Purdue's extension and the Fair Board having questions about safety precautions and everything like that, so I apologize. So I'm here tonight, kind of tag teaming with Stephanie to ask for an additional appropriation of $25,000 for COVID emergency funding.
This is the same thing, it would be reimbursable with a certain percentage, all that.
We're hoping for, like I said, we're hoping for full reimbursement, if not at least 75%. And I do plan we're right on the edge or the end of our BP1 2019-2020 preparedness grants. They're wrapping up at the end of this month, so July 1st starts the new funding stream for that. So we do have plans in place to use part of those preparedness funds to try to resupply our PPE.
And then the other request in that same line item, I guess, is for a transfer of funds to an environmental health specialist.
Right, my health educator has resigned, and we are in desperate need to hire an environmental health specialist. So I would like to move the funding from the health educator line item to the environmental health specialist position. It originally was there this year or was at budget last year. It was my 6th one, but we didn't fund it because we were asked not to. So we funded the health educator instead of the.
How are you going to do without the educator? What are you going to do about that?
Well, we need that too, but we can wait on that one versus, the environmental health specialist. I have an aging workforce, and I know I have 2 or 3 of my chief inspectors or my more, seasoned inspectors that are gonna leave me, so I need, to really be working hard to bring some young blood in to learn everything there is to learn at the health department and get up to speed.
How soon do you think you're gonna need the educator position filled?
Probably January. And I think the last thing I'm coming in front of you for is to move in the end of the year with preparedness. We run into I can say this, my person that was in the overtime line item, we moved that out of overtime into a part-time position. When that happened, there was perf set aside for that. We no longer need the perf because we don't pay into that. So we are just putting some monies into the other position to help fund that. And it has to all be spent by the end of the month or the state gets upset.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve, number 2, health, number 1159, items A, B, and C as presented.
Second. No motion by Mr. McCarty, second by Mr. Ketchum. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. BB 1.
That's the one, the BP one, that's the, about moving the stuff from perf into.
Make a motion to approve item
So this is all just new additional appropriations to your new grant.
This is for appropriate, is that the funding for the, I'm sorry, I should
This is all
bring an
funded
agenda with
for
me.
the new grant, not
Okay, that's for the, okay, so what this is what the first monies of the grant, the base grant, the entire portion of that gets funded or gets appropriated in to pay for personnel. That's the way the state sets it out, and so I'm asking for the appropriation of the new grant money starting July 1st.
I have a motion by Mr. Ison, second by Mr. Turner. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Planning and zoning.
Good evening, David Hiddle, Johnson County Department of Planning and Zoning, here with 2 items that are related. Our county planning engineer, Alan Kirk, is retiring this next month after 21 years. We've hired somebody to replace it, but we would be immeasurably benefited by having some overlap between the two. And we'd like to have 2 weeks of overlap. In order to do that, we would be paying the new guy out of the part-time line item. And we've realized enough savings to date this year and a couple other line items that we can shuffle some money into that part-time line item to accommodate those 2 weeks of pay from our per diem item and our professional services item. In addition to our part-time line item, we've had 2 part-time positions that went vacant for a short period of time this year. So we realized some savings there. So we would ask to be able to move a total of $2,000 additional into our part-time item. And we would also need your approval to increase or to allow for us to pay an hourly rate of $43.17, which is hourly equivalent of the county planning engineer, out of that part-time position, which to date has only been used to pay $14 an hour wages for our part-time building inspector and part-time office clerk.
That just be for those 2 weeks.
Correct.
43.17.
Correct.
I'll move to approve as presented.
I'll second that, but one quick question, and I know you've already mentioned it down here. the professional services and the per diem board members, that's not gonna affect them going forward, right?
Right, we've had a couple of board meetings canceled and we set aside enough money for maximum attendance of those. We've had a couple of meetings canceled, we've had some no-shows, so there's a little bit of savings there. And for professional services, we just haven't used our planning commission council and our DCA council hardly at all this year for external consultation. So there's actually been pretty significant savings. Not any particular reason, it's kind of an anomaly, but so yeah, it will not impact what we're able to need to do for the rest.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Ketchum, second by Mr. McCarty. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Quick. Oh.
Random adjustments, $152, that's just housekeeping.
On the letter.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the request as presented.
Second. Motion by Mr. McCarty, second by Jonathan Taylor. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Up next is another business justice center update, John Edition.
Mr. Walls.
Mr. Wallace. Mr. Wallace. What's out there?
Bueller.
I thought Wes was gonna be here. Wes?
I just talked to you.
Oh, she's deputy here.
Yeah, he can fill us in.
Sheriff?
Sheriff, how's the new jail looking?
Oh, let me get Kevin up here. We got a Zoom going on with the fair board. I can tell a little bit if you want me to. Wayne Burgess, Johnson County Sheriff. They're back to work right now. When we had the COVID outbreak, a lot of the workers would not come inside the facility, so we are kind of getting back to normal where they're doing stuff. They're making progress. There's been a lot of outside work done, dirt moved, and I think Wes had some other dates that he was going to bring to you here in just a few minutes to let you know where they're at with that. But we'll be happy at least to get our medical unit, and then they're going to start on the east side of the facility with the bays and everything. So hopefully they'll be up here. They went downstairs. They left me, so.
How are they looking on schedule?
3 weeks, probably 3 weeks out. I mean, 3 weeks behind because of that, so.
Sheriff, I was wondering, since we went through this whole thing the last couple of months, is there something, any kind of redesigning or like quarantine units or anything that you'll look at on the student?
The medical's gonna help out with a lot if we have individuals that would need to be in that area, but having the space is going, that's where we struggled because we could not move certain inmates around. It was limited on space. Now, the courts, the prosecutor's office, they were great on getting a certain number of low-level felons, or not felons, but misdemeanor people out. So having this extra space will make it a lot. It's been great if we wouldn't have it. Still,
He wants you to handle it.
They're just waiting for an invitation.
Kevin?
Wes is there too.
Bueller.
Ron West might be my favorite commissioner.
Yeah, right.
It's up to you. I've been. Go ahead.
He's covering for you.
Well, sorry.
Yeah, constructions.
Two different things going on.
Kevin Walls, Johnson County Commissioner.
Wes Harrison, the owner's representative for the Justice Center expansion project.
Wes is going to give you an update.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. Just want to give you a quick update. We're on schedule and on budget, which is two good things to start with. Just briefly, the medical area that is a renovation within the interior of the building, it's the old courtyard, the open air courtyard, is being converted into the new medical space, and it will be completed towards the middle of July. It was pushed back a couple of weeks because of the COVID issues we had in the jail, and the contractors were not required to work in there during that time. So they have reinstituted their work inside the jail and in that space, and they'll be done towards the middle of July. The foundations for the new jail area was starting today, and they will continue on for about 6 weeks, and then July 15th, the metal building shows up, and there'll be an erection that week. So if you get a chance to drive by about the middle of July, it'll be exciting for us. I'm not sure it's exciting for everybody, but for us, it's fun to see progress like that. The site work is continuing on around the jail. This next week and probably through the rest of the month, we've got some pretty invasive sewer work being done from the jail out to Hospital Road. We're going to try to minimize time-wise. We've got a plan to get the personnel in and out. The sheriff and his staff have been fantastic to work with as far as logistics and security and everything. So we expect that to go off without a hitch. It's well planned. We had a water changeover last week. It was actually Sunday evening at 11 o'clock. In the evening, they did water changeover from the old service to the new service, and that went flawless. So, so far everything's gone very well. Garmong, our construction manager, has done a good job of coordinating the progress. And like I said, we're on schedule and on budget. And we're to the point now on some of our interior finishes where we're starting to buy furniture and appliances for the medical area. As soon as that area is done, then the jail administration, not the sheriff's administration, but the jail administration relocates, and that area begins to renovate. And then we'll work our way east into the bookend area, and shortly the new Southport construction will begin. So, any questions from anyone?
You guys have asked me questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
The accessories are undoubtedly high-end. I know the sheriff's taste, so I'm sure they're top of the line.
He's coming back to defend himself right now.
A lot of Tiffany's catalog stuff, you know.
Examples from the city of Greenwood.
It's very utilitarian, but I will say everything we are purchasing is the best of quality that we can get for the money that we have to work with. The one thing I didn't mention was that about half of the pods, the prefabricated jail pods, are complete. They're being stored in Georgia where they're being fabricated. And within the next 6 to 8 weeks, they'll be 100% complete, which is important because they are very popular. There's only 2 or 3 manufacturers in the country that make these. It was important for us to get in line with these fabricated. And just by coincidence, Marion County, they're doing the same pods for Marion County. So we are ahead of them. So ours will sit down in Georgia for a few weeks, but at least they'll be ready for us. So.
Thank you. All right, we're out of here. See ya. Thank you.
Next is Mike Broder, discussion on fiscal plan and budget guidelines. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mike.
I apologize for not being there this evening. I know we're right in the middle of a reopening, but hopefully this will go well. So Normally this is the time of the year I come out and present to you a draft fiscal plan and start to talk about some of those budget assumptions of what fall might look like. Obviously, the last 3 months, things have dramatically changed how we are operating in terms of looking at forecasting revenues. Early on, when this all began, I was just really wrapping up, completing all the year-end information and reforecasting kind of based on what had been happening. Obviously, we were in a very, very strong economy coming into this, and things were looking really, really good in terms of what the next few years look like. And then obviously we hit the brakes, and things changed very rapidly. I've participated in a number of Zoom meetings, WebExes, all of the above over the last 3 months, trying to stay ahead of this. And I'm not sure anybody really knows where this is all going. We're starting to roll the economy back out. I think we're all hopeful that we can remain open without having another shutdown. I guess if there is a boogeyman for me out there, it would be a second shutdown. I do think, that we will be able to survive round one of this. You are in a very strong cash position going into this. So that is the good news in the sense that your balances are really strong. I will walk you through some of those balances this evening. But instead of providing you a plan tonight, I would rather wait till I have better assumptions. Things are continuing to change. Even as of last Thursday, the governor issued another executive order and how it will impact the lit allocation for 2021. And I'm going to walk you through that as well. But for those of you that have been on the council for a while, you've heard me say, local government is slow to feel the effects of a recession, but we're also slow to come out of a recession. And so we were really just getting beyond the recession effects of last time, and now feeling something that could be even more dramatic than that. When this first started happening, I started to go back to 2008 and reflect on the Great Recession. I thought, well, I'll start to model in those numbers, and we'll see what that looks like. But I'm not sure that's going to be enough. It just depends, I think, whether we have a round two or not. Early on, KPMG, Pete Marwick, that's a large accounting / consulting firm in the country, published a report. And in that report, they cited, the federal government may have to put $1 trillion of stimulus money out to soften the impact of this event. And literally 1 week later, the federal government was putting out $2 trillion. And the unemployment numbers obviously were going up so rapidly beyond what we'd ever seen before. And so, and not that long ago, a month ago now, we started talking about another $3 trillion. And so that just kind of shows you the magnitude of the event and how quickly things have been changing. So it's just been difficult to get my arms around how this is all going to play out. Some of it, you'll be just fine for the immediate future. And obviously then some of them you're feeling the effects of it right away, such as food and beverage tax. But I'm going to walk through all that a little bit. But, Larry DeBoer, he's done Larry's an economist at Purdue. He's done some webinars, trying to predict the effects of all this. And of course, it's just all dependent on how long we were going to remain closed and would we be able to reopen. And obviously people are still trying to figure out what that looks like. Schools are really struggling with this. The state has had immediate effects on their budget. Fortunately, they were in a very strong cash position. You've heard them tout their $2 billion surplus, which is a really strong surplus for a state. Yet in one of Larry's forecasts, Larry DeBoer's forecast, saying, if we don't reopen the economy at this pace, we'll go through $1 billion that surplus in the first 6 months. Well, if you carry that out for a year, you can imagine that the entire surplus would be gone. Michael Hicks, he's an economist at Ball State, and he was in the paper not too long ago, cited as saying he thinks the state would run out of money sometime in autumn. He wasn't as specific as to what month, but that just kind of shows you how severe, how quickly things change. Now, the state, unlike the county, the state, 80% of their revenue is income tax and sales tax. Well, you can imagine what happened with that when you shut the economy down. And then another large source of revenue for them is obviously gas taxes. And the road miles were down anywhere between 35 and 45%. So just they were being hit from all angles. But we are rolling out the economy. I was on 465 today, and I thought I was in the Indianapolis 500 as fast as everybody was going around there, and there were so many cars on the road. And so I do think that things are opening back up. We're starting to see movement again, and let's just hope that we can keep that model going. So with that said, I'm going to screen share and walk you through property tax, and then talk about local option income tax, which is the wild card. I'm getting a host disabled screen share. Could you allow me that access? Okay, there we are. Thank you. So you've heard me talk about the 6-year non-farm personal income factor, and this is the factor used in calculating property tax for the next year. And so for 2020, our levies increased 1.035 or 3.5%. And you can't see it on this page, but in 2013, we didn't have great growth in the state, and it's been dragging that factor down, and that's going to fall off this year. And so actually for 2021, we're actually going to see a larger increase in our property tax levy than what we have seen this year. And so that's odd, but it's the way local government is set up, because we're dealing with a lot of things in the rears. And so this factor will be based on calendar year 2019, 18, 17, 16, 15, and 14. So that average is actually going up from what we've seen in the most recent years. Now, I dropped in just to see what kind of impact it is, but this is what happened in 2008. We dropped about 3% statewide in income tax. And what you'll see then is by instead of using a 4% growth number, using a 3% decrease, because you're averaging 6 years, it's going to drop the following year. So this would be for the 22 budget, but you would still be seeing an increase in your levy. And that's not necessarily an awful increase either. So, but that's what I mean when I refer to the effects, slow to feel the effects of recession and slow to come out, because we're always dealing with information of the past. And of course, 2019 is going to be a really strong year. The effects of COVID really didn't start happening until 2020. That also plays into the assessed valuation. And so next year, 2021, I'm using an assumption of 3.5% growth. And if you look at the most recent years, 2020, 2019, 2018, 3.5% would actually be conservative. And the reason I'm using that strong a growth yet is because that is what was assessed as of January 20. Again, January 20, the real estate market was on fire and we were seeing positive trending, meaning values of homes are going up. And I haven't backed it down yet in 22. Now that won't affect your 21 budget. This 3.5 would, but I haven't backed it down yet because the real estate market, from what I can tell on the existing market, continues to be strong. Now, let's hope that continues with the low interest rate and those still seeking homes or refinancing with those more attractive rates. But we've been in a seller's market, and so we've seen some really positive trending on the assessed valuation. But it wasn't that long ago, if you go back to 15, where we didn't see growth. So we have some time to kind of react to that 22 number later. I'm more focused right now getting through 21. And then you'll see as well the real impact to the county will be felt more in 22 than it will be in 2021. So from a property tax standpoint, when you look at your levy, what you're going to get in an increase for 21 and what you're probably going to see in assessed valuation growth, you're not going to feel too much of the effect of the recession or whatever we're going to call this, the COVID event, when it all plays out. But where you are going to see some impact is in the lit allocation. And this is kind of the late breaking news. Again, these are probably just conservative assumptions. And in this case, what I mean conservative meaning low, that they could be worse than this. Can you all see that okay? Is it too small for you to see on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if I can zoom that to get this a little larger here. Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. This column right here, the collection column, represents calendar year collections. And so this may sound crazy, but the last known year, and I've bolded off the page here, is 2018. We just received that information this spring. And we saw a nice increase of 5.58% in our collection number for 2018. That actually, because that was so strong, we received another special distribution this year as a result of the collections here being higher than what they distributed to us in 2018. This certified distribution column, though, is not apples to apples. This collection column is a calendar year column, and the certified distribution number, so for like 20, what we received for 20 was actually based on fiscal year 2018-19. And so for 2021, that is going to be based on collections from July 1 of 2019 through June 30th of 2020. And obviously the first 7 months of that fiscal year, things were very strong. And so we would have seen nice growth. And as you see, the year before, we'd actually grown 8.3%, which was very strong. So for 7 months of the year, we're going to see good collection numbers. But obviously, these last 3 months have been devastating to collections. And I just started with 0 here. That may not be enough, because this depends, again, whether we'll be able to remain open. But But you're actually going to get another special distribution in 21, and that's the odd thing, is here we are in this COVID event, and our 2021 special distribution is liable to be, it will be higher than what we even received this year because it's the lag. So I'm forecasting for 2019 another 5% increase in the lid collections. And if that comes true, when you compare the collection number to what they actually distributed to us, we'll get another special distribution in 21. And so while our regular distribution will be damaged, hopefully we can make up some of that with this special distribution for 21. So, but what you can see thereafter, as I started to model in even just a 6% growth, and by the way, I've heard some counties projecting 20% growth, and some up in the northern region projecting 30%, excuse me, not growth, 30% decreases and 20% decreases. So I would say Johnson County probably will weather this a little better than many counties around the state, but nevertheless, we're going to see an impact because in 2022, that's going to be based on the collections from July 1 of 20 through June 30th of 2021. And so that literally is the $1 trillion question. You know, what will happen in the next 12 months? Will we have another shutdown? So not all bad news, but what you can quickly see is that our special distributions will evaporate in those years. But what was important about the governor's orders is that one of his initial executive orders, if you recall, was to delay the filing date for income taxes from April 15th to July 15th. Well, at first, I didn't think much of that, but because our distributions for 21 is going to be based on July 1 of 19 through June 30th of 20, that would have pushed the money that we would have normally received in the final returns of April into the next year. And we would not have gotten those dollars until 2022. And so his executive order, which just came out at the end of this last week, states that the Department of Revenue and Budget Agency will be allowed to use the returns that would have otherwise been filed in April to be part of the 2021 distribution. The reason that's significant, to give you some idea, if you've been following any of the news articles as it relates to the state budget, they were off $1 billion of their revenue estimate in April. But if you followed the article through, they estimated about 800 million of that was due to that delay of filing the returns from April 15th to July 15th. So that gives you some idea of how much money is collected in that distribution, and that would have significantly affected our 2021 distribution. Before I go on from there, are there any questions before I move on? Okay, I'm going to go on and just show you some of your cash positions so that you can have at least some ease knowing that you're going into this probably a little better prepared than most. When you look at the general fund, I'm going to zoom back out, I apologize. Go back to 100% here. Yep, that's too small. Okay, so this is the general fund. Oops, jumped too far, sorry. This is the general fund. And at the end of 2019, I'm going to have to go to 100% to get this all on one page. At the end of 2019, I'm still not getting it on one page here. Let's go this way. You can see the top maybe a little bit better. So at the end of 2019, you ended the year in your operating fund just shy of $15 million. And that is a very strong cash balance. You've also heard me reference, what is a good cash balance? I've always suggested to you 50% of your next year's property tax collection is a good benchmark. So in this case, if you're $16 million in a property tax levy, if you had $8 million, that would be a good cash balance. But you can see how far you've come in really a pretty short period of time. Just in the beginning of 15, you were at $5.7 million. And at the end of 20, you're at 15. But that also doesn't account for you transferred $3 million to the rainy day fund. So you were in a very strong cash position at the end of 2019. And our budget for 20 was in balance when we came into this year. So now I didn't want to give you a plan because I'm not comfortable yet that these forecasts are right. 21, maybe a little bit better of a forecast because property tax, as I said, is going to be pretty stable, and income tax should be pretty stable. But that special distribution's coming into play here and kicking that number up. So that's just an early projection. But you can see it turns pretty quickly the other way when you start modeling negative numbers into those forecasts.
We can't see those numbers that you highlighted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me try to get this back to 200%. I'm sorry. I'm scrolling over here. Going slowly. All right, can you see those numbers now?
Yes.
This is 2020, and our budget is in balance, 500,000. And next year, I'm actually forecasting the budget in balance right now, but that's mainly due to, oops, jumped too fast. That's mainly due to this special distribution coming in 2021 that I'm anticipating. But you can see down here at the bottom then how quickly, if you start running negative, when you start running negative income tax numbers into that, and you start lowering the 6-year non-farm personal income factor, that the budget could be out of balance pretty quickly. What I've suggested to people as you think about the 2021 budget is, and I've spoken to John about this, is since things are still early, we're not going to know things for quite some time yet. The governor's order, which allowed for the collections to be included in the 21 distribution, also included a delay of when they have to certify the amount for 2021. And so unfortunately, we're not going to know the certified number for the county until September 15th, just because they're obviously struggling with getting all the information as well, that we won't even have the collection numbers in until July 15th, and then they'll have to turn them around. So they've delayed that. So for budget purposes, what I've suggested, if you're considering any kind of salary increase, is that you budget it maybe into the council budget with no commitment, so that you can make that decision later, and you can always take it out if we see things get worse. But that way you at least have a placeholder if you decide to give raises. So you're actually in a cash position to be able to do that. But again, going back to my comment, you're slow to come into a set recession and slow to come out. Well, it's when you're coming out that you're also going to want to maintain cash, because that's when you'll be competing with the private sector. So you're probably not going to see large increases in the private sector salary increases this next year. And so, preserving cash for a future salary increase might be prudent as well. Any questions before I move off the general fund?
You say for the 2021 budget, it's in line?
As of right now, it is in balance for 2021. That kind of depends on how, what your budget ends up being. I'm using I've used a salary increase. I've built in some increases for health insurance. And so I've built in some estimated cost increases. It obviously will depend on where your budget comes in and where that lit number comes in, where that local option income tax number comes in. It shouldn't be way off, I wouldn't think, just because of how the timing of all this is coming in, and the special distribution, as I mentioned, hopefully will offset some of the regular distribution decrease that I would anticipate.
Mike, did you use a 3% on the increase?
I have a 2% built in. That reflects a 2%. Okay, I'm going to move on to page 6, which is your rainy day fund. Just as I've already mentioned, that you did build some cash up at the end of this last year, and so this one I can zoom back out and get it all back on one page here, I believe. Here we go. Yeah, so at the end of 19, you can see here that you moved that $3 million into the rainy day and built that balance back up. Page 7, this is the highway fund. I have not built a decrease in here, and there will be one. One of the webinars I participated in at Purdue was with the transportation Indiana Department of Transportation, and they were trying to explain what was happening with gas taxes. And they were saying that at that time, March, when this all began to shut down, that the road miles dropped 35 to 45%. And so obviously you probably all experienced it as well. Not many of us were going through much gas at that time when we were all ordered to stay home. And so that began to impact the May distribution. So we get monthly distributions from the state, but there's a bit of delay from when they collect the tax to when you receive it. And so I've not reduced this one yet, because in that meeting, they said the state was going to provide us some estimates of what they thought this impact might be, but I've not seen those yet. And so this is still the higher number. But I would say, and I don't have any data to support this, but just looking at the economy opening back up right now, people are traveling. So I would expect that we're going to see those collections down for about 3 months, but they should be climbing back. So it might be just a hit on the cash balance. And coming into 20, you had about two. Now I know you got a lot of road projects that you'd like to deal with, but coming into 20, you had $2 million a cash balance in the highway department. And so if these are off 3 months, you have the balance to be able to absorb that. Some don't have that ability, but in your case, you do have some room in your highway department that you could absorb some of that. The next one, page 8, is wheel tax. I've not lowered this projection yet because, people didn't have to get their license renewed, but they're still going to have to get their license renewed. And so, the B&B is coming back, I believe next week maybe again with open hours. And so what we might see some decrease from, I would say new car sales were probably down. And so you might see some decrease as a result of that. But people are still going to have to renew their registrations. And so I don't anticipate a huge impact on the wheel and surtax fund. So, and then I'm going to wrap up. I'm probably taking too much time already. I'm just going to wrap up with the combined page. This is page 22. This is the one where I combine. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I want to hit food and beverage tax. This is one I have not. I just want to show you I've not reduced this one yet, but I think we're getting closer to be able to getting our arms around this. I saw some information Michelle shared with you as well. Apologize, I got to get to it here. Yeah, I'm going the wrong way, I think. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, so food and beverage tax. You ended the year 2019 with $1.4 million of cash. The revenue estimate for 2020 was 2.4. Our actual collections for 2019 were 2,665,000. So that's not a real aggressive estimate there. And I did see, the full month of April, you were down about $100,000 in sales tax, food and beverage tax. And so if we're only down, if you figure we're only down about 4 or 5 months of that, that would be about $400,000 to $500,000 of loss in food and beverage taxes. And so obviously you've got a strong cash balance here. You're at about a 50% cash balance to your budget in the food and beverage fund. So I know you don't want to lose $400,000 or $500,000, but nevertheless, you've got, again, the cash balance to be able to absorb some of that without having to take immediate action. And so what I've done too is on page 22 here. Now this is going to get a little bit tiny again. I'm going to try to make it larger here. Oops. 200%. So, looking at coming into 2020 with food and beverage, you were at 16 million. This is general fund and food and beverage. You were at 16,378,000, and that did not include your $3 million in your rainy day fund. So that's a very strong cash balance and is going to obviously give you a little more flexibility to ride this event out. But obviously, literally the $1 trillion question is, how long will this last? And if we get into round 2 of this, that could be very challenging. So that's just a quick summary of some. Yes, is there a question? Okay. That's all I have for you this evening. From a timeline standpoint, obviously what will happen is July 1 is a key date for me. That's where I begin to take all your first 6 months actual revenues and begin to reforecast the remaining half of 2020 and reforecasting 2021 and beyond. So that process, we're not too far away. Unfortunately, that delay in getting the 2021 number from the state is going to cause some problems with your ability to pin down the budget. But in summary, 21, you're going to feel the effects of some of this event, but the majority of it's going to be felt in 2022. So you have the cash balance and you have some time to react to what's going on.
Thank you, Mike.
There.
I have a question for you, Mike. This is Jonathan Myers.
Yes.
Has there been any discussion at the state level about moving the budgetary process back a little so that you can make these?
They have not. As of this moment, I've not heard that. Right now, you have until November 1 to adopt the budget. So if we do get that information on September 15th or late September, we would still have a month to react to that. So probably what we will have to do is go through the budget process and have a priority list built. And then once we pin that number down, then you can see how far down you'll have to go down into that list when you actually approve the budget then.
This is going to be an extremely challenging budget year. I mean, this year from just first glance perspective, you got a strong cash balance, money in the bank, but we have no idea what 2022, 2023 is going to bring.
Right.
It's going to be a hard one.
When I talked to Mike on the phone, he also mentioned that, instead of a pay raise, maybe give like a stipend, and next year look at it, maybe a permanent one, or leave it as a stipend. If we did something like that, we could possibly do that. Because we all know what's going to happen next 12 months.
And unfortunately for the employees, it's always the unknown, right? Never know what it's going to bring.
That's something else to think about. Yeah, sure. If somebody doesn't go with a definite 2%, you can look at possibly a stipend. Economy comes back, next year you can make it up permanent. Go ahead and continue on.
Michelle has a question for Mark.
Michelle Ann Graves, Johnson County Treasurer. Hi, Mike. I've got a question for you.
Sure.
I had trouble focusing on those numbers. I didn't have my old lady glasses on.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't able to determine from the numbers that you presented. Do your numbers include interest earned by investments for 20?
Interest earned from investments, yes.
What did you figure that percentage on, or?
I did reduce it in future years. Let me get to that. This is the original estimate, Michelle. I have not revised it down yet, but last year at the calendar year 2019, are you seeing my screen?
No, I see.
Okay, let me screen share again. I'm sorry. Can you enable me to screen share again, please? Okay, here we go. Let me get back to this. So, yeah, so in 2000, I'll zoom this in a little bigger here. Yeah, so 2019, the actual interest earned was $1,387,009. The original budget estimate was $1,173,000. I'm not sure how you feel about that at this point. I don't know how long you had some of those investments out. I have began to start backing that down significantly in these out years.
And just one question to clarify. So the interest earned on investments, does that include the interest that we're earning for cash on hand, or is that just for the certificates of deposit
This is everything. This is
for 19?
everything for 19 that was credited to the general fund, whether it be cash on hand or investments.
I think our numbers came in at for last year at almost $2.25 million, almost 2.25 million. And
Yeah, so some of that may have been.
Share was we still have about 12 mil. Well, we have $12 million invested in certificates of deposit that are earning 2.8 to over 3%. So those are going to mature. 8 million will mature in 2021, and the other 4 million will mature in 2022.
That's great news. That will be that'll be very helpful. So this year we still have the higher number built in, but it's 21 and 22 where I begin to start backing those down with interest rates declining. Now, and it will also obviously depend on fund balances if we begin to spend some of our fund balances down. Right now, our fund balances are very strong.
I was just curious if you had those numbers built in. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What else have anything? When do what are our guideline dates? What does it say, July?
She has to have everything turned in July.
Well, initially I said I think July 8th, but given the circumstances, delayed it a little bit. But no.
Does anybody have anything else in mind? No, but it probably would hurt and stick around for a minute if you didn't have anywhere to go.
Can you stick around for a few more minutes, Mike?
Sure.
As far as the raises, I know that's going to be very fluid. I'm not opposed to the stipend. The only thing I would ask people to keep in mind is that will affect the employees' retirement as far as raising that base salary for retirement based on
It's decided for 1 year and raise their.
it would not.
It would not.
Right, it would not raise. That's what a rate, a pay raise would.
Mike, what was the 2% was what, 300 and some thousand?
Yeah, the general fund portion.
I think we're in a position to seriously look at doing something for the employees, but I know a lot of councilors are putting much increases in place due to this.
I like this idea, put it in the council budget, and as more numbers come in, we can get a better feel on it. Decide that. I think money should be there.
What would 3% be, Mike? Like 450,000, 500,000?
Give me just a second here if you don't mind. Take me a minute to calculate that. That would be yeah, the general, just a little high, just almost right at 500,000 for the general fund.
500. Yeah, I mean, I agree, that would be a, whatever the number is, we could use that as a placeholder in the council budget, but it's, you know, I don't know what you. It's all part of this for guidelines.
I think theirs would be just basically a flat line budget. Placeholder would be under our budget. Am I correct, Mike?
Correct.
Has Mike seen the summary report?
Yes. Somebody has a question online?
It's Brandy Foster.
Sorry,
It's Brandy Foster.
Brandy?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
When are we scheduled to receive the results from the salary parity study?
Sorry.
What's the results from the salary study?
So what's the results from the salary study?
I just want to know when are we going to expect to see them?
We have to work that out with the commissioners. Hopefully soon.
I think, I mean, the plan is in the next couple of weeks to have a special meeting.
Yes.
But before we were scheduled to turn in any proposed budgets, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great.
That's gonna open up a whole nother area of discussion, right?
I had a bad time.
That sounds familiar.
So I think my recommendation would be put it at 3%. We can always back it down. And
Under the council
right.
budget.
But as much as I don't like doing it, I think that in a world where most local governments probably aren't going to see a pay raise in lieu of not getting one versus a stipend, I kind of like that idea.
Right, I mean, it's too early to tell, but we'll have better numbers and with this assignment, we can always make it a permanent pay raise, correct, Mike?
Correct.
I mean, we're in such a strong cash position. I mean, because of, you know, what we've done over the past years, we can definitely afford it this year without a problem. But what happens next year? Year after, who knows? But we need to cross that bridge when we get to it. Right. But I agree. I mean, I think that's probably the way to do it, is put a council budget, come in with flatline budget except for, or, I mean, whatever your needs are, and that's what we have budget for, right?
Right. Flatline or just have to justify the increases?
Yeah, both of those things. Flatline budget with justified increases.
So we can't walk this year. You're a lot maybe.
I have weeks vacation coming
Advantage, you're
That'd be a good time to- that'd be a good time to take it.
Vacation.
Yeah, did she tell you where we were going?
Oh, anything else, gentlemen? Anybody else? Sheriff, Commissioner? All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.